Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Wednesday Night Live show. Happy Wednesday, everybody. We have music again, so it's a happy Wednesday.
We'll see. We'll see.
Joining us today is the vape lawyer himself, Greg Troutman, to fill us in on all things pending litigation with the FDA. So,
Counselor, how are you? It's good to see you.
I'm good. I'm glad to be here tonight.
Yes. And me and Tim were right. I mean, we knew we seen you. We talked about it earlier, but we knew you were on the show for maybe 20 minutes right at the end. You made us all look bad on your elliptical. Who's this? Oh, it's Paul. I'm like, who is this? Paul. It is Paul.
Yeah.
There's Paul in a nondescript location.
I was at the gym on the elliptical, and Nick Orlando messaged me very quick and said, "Can you get on this thing real quick?" And yeah, sure. Multitask.
Yeah. That's what I say. You're just the first interview done at a gym on the Wednesday Night Live show.
It's not the worst appearance I've ever had before. I had to argue a case on Zoom a couple years ago, right as I was getting off an airplane in Atlanta, and I literally was arguing my case. I'm standing at the men's room urinal taking a pee.
Oh man!
And I won.
Okay, I was about to say, did you win?
I won.
Okay.
I can see everybody in the Zoom call going, "Did I hear running water?"
If you had lost, we might need to rethink our approach there.
Somebody left the faucet on or something. Timmy, how's your week going?
Well, I guess it's going well so far. I mean, obviously that Prevagen that I'm taking kicked in because we remembered Greg on his elliptical bike months ago. No, not that.
Still working, Tim. Our minds are still good.
Exactly. I'm still lucid. I can still remember things. I remember this weekend just because I spent 3 days.
Speak for yourself, buddy. Yeah, I have no idea what.
I'm sure whatever you're doing was far more enjoyable than what I was doing. So I
suffering from heat stroke.
Well, don't die on us, okay? I'm glad that you were still with us. But I spent 3 days at a pool house configuring a network, and I walked into what Spectrum just brought in our commercial internet thing and just left like a pile of electronics. So I had to deconstruct the mountain of electronics and turn it into a beautiful array of daisy chained shit that I have no idea what it does. All I know is we have internet, and that's all that matters in the end. So I would say pool open today. My work is done here. We're moving on.
Is this something?
You look marvelous.
Yeah, you look marvelous, darling. Are you going to get phone calls now to
no? So
Wi-Fi connection.
Well, no, we have a lot of overkill. So I mean, they won't install internet at a pool house like a residence. You have to go with a commercial setup. So we had to get the VoIP modem for business phone line service, right? So, well, I mean, it's a kidney-sized pool, so there's no offices down there. We had to get the cellular backhaul installed so that if the Wi-Fi goes down, we have cellular service to maintain our internet connection for redundancy. Probably will never ever use that. And then they give you the Spectrum modem, which is daisy chained into their Spectrum Wi-Fi super fast router, which only broadcasts a single SSID, and you can't separate the channels.
Right. So you actually can't get into your own IP. I suffer from the same provider.
So at the end of all of that, I'm like, I call them and I'm like, all right, so tell me how I'm supposed to set up a guest network because I'm providing guest Wi-Fi to a pool. I don't want them on the main network. And they're like, oh, well, sorry, you'll have to install your own router behind our router. So I had to add a fifth device behind their router in order to broadcast a Wi-Fi signal.
The question is, will you be doing a show appearance from the pool?
No, because I've vowed.
Allie plans on it.
Yeah, I vowed after this 3-day experience that I never want to see that fucking pool for the rest of the summer season.
But whose fucking pool is this? Is this your fucking pool? Is this
community pool? Phillip, you probably don't know at this point, but we're gonna let's clue Phillip in. Phillip, I am.
Thank you.
I am the person that you probably in a community would more than likely like to hate the most. I'm a member of the HOA board here in my community. So
I'm president.
I'm not the president. I am the secretary. Apparently the jack of all trades, master of nothing. So at any rate, yeah. So I'm the person. I'm the person that everybody thinks is like the nosy Karen that walks around the neighborhood and tells you to put your trash can back in the back of the yard. Not my job. Not my job.
Not my job.
I just vote on.
You actually have a job. Being president is actually very much like
it's an
being
honor.
President of the United States. It's an honorary title.
Tim drives down a neighborhood like this.
And let's call a spade. I don't get paid for any of this hard work. So just all out of the
raccoons are getting in my trash.
Heart.
Not my problem, ma'am. You have a good day.
Tim's the guy that drives around in this truck in the neighborhood and measures.
I do that a lot.
I
do that a lot.
The grass isn't too tall.
We got to hang out. We do.
Allie, how's your week going?
Pretty good. Just got back from DC. It was a great trip, but a lot of work waiting on me when I got back. So I've been extremely busy since I came back to work. But other than that, it's been really good. My son got section leader for the trumpet section for his senior year of marching band. So that's really exciting. Busy summer, but everything is really good.
Good. And Mr. Paul, how is life treating you there? And no, it's no longer sunny Australia because I see you're wearing a sweatshirt, so it's got to be cold.
It's getting cold, but I'm also getting over a pretty bad chest infection. Yeah. So
lay off those
learning how to talk again. So what am I going to lay off?
So lay off those black market street cards.
Oh well, yeah, they're becoming a bit of an issue here now.
Yeah. Other than that, okay week?
So far, so good. Yeah.
So far, so good. Let's hope that Phil can cheer us up. Phil, what kind of weekend are you at?
What kind of weekend did I have?
You said weekend, you passed out or whatever, so I'm sure it was exciting.
I actually did manage. I went to help my father and stepmother put together this extremely temporary set of pool chaises, and it was mid 80s, unadulterated sun, very dry. And me being 48, somewhat out of shape, fresh from winter, I've got a rubber mallet trying to put these screws in the holes that were not meant for screws. Over the next 6 hours, I decide that it's probably best not to drink any fluids. And somewhere around hour 5.5, I stop sweating. I look around and I say, oh dear. Bad call. So of course you start drinking a ton of water, which makes you even sicker.
Oh no.
And let's just say I love Deirdre. She for the next 24 hours I really felt like I was gonna die.
Oh man.
I'll bet.
Nausea, shakes, all kinds of just idiotic shit. So being a grown-ass man, I take full responsibility, but children, listen to me. You don't ever want to screw this one up. It is awful.
Yeah, hydrate, man. Hydrate.
Drink your water.
This was actually not. This is when I had to call in sick for the show. It was it was awful. Here's what we have going on. I can't tell you any details because I am contractually obligated to say nothing about.
You're gonna plead
all the good news.
All right,
but I'm gonna. It's gonna be great when I can talk about it.
All right, well, we hope so. Greg, how's your week gone?
So far, so good. Just catching back up from being in New Orleans last week.
That's it.
Pretty much every week. Pretty much.
We are six
Every
of the
week.
most boring people on the face of the
I remember you in DC in 2019. You had a hell of a lot more to say than just that.
Yeah,
Come
well,
on, Greg.
every week pretty much sucks when you practice law because you see the worst of everybody and everything. You know, I really can't talk about my other cases that aren't vape related because of confidentiality, but let's just say I keep busy.
Yeah, that's good.
Oh, I thought you were going to say the adage applies. What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas.
That's where I was going.
I wasn't in Vegas. I was in New Orleans. But I guess
Nolans.
Yeah,
I guess the same adage there applies too. It's the East Coast version of Vegas.
Yeah.
So
what is settled in front of the urinal?
You were talking about being on your HOA board. I've been on my HOA board for 21 years.
Whoa.
Actually, 22 years.
Do they call you at midnight about squirrels in the attic?
No.
Are you the most hated man in your neighborhood?
Actually, no, because we're very reasonable. We really, you know how many times we've been sued by residents in 22 years? Zero. We just don't. We're not a bunch of Karens. We don't go out and actively look for stuff. If someone reports something is wrong, we'll investigate it. We'll take it up. Yeah. But we don't go out just micromanaging things.
No, see, we don't do that either. Yeah, that's what everybody thinks happens.
They do that in my. They do that where I live, and it's awful.
Well, we have a company that does that.
Yeah,
so
you
have to remove yourself to an extent. From that.
You have a set.
I'm only allowed to have one thing hanging outside, and it has to be a wind chime. And I had to move my hummingbird feeder, and I was pissed. I'm like, my hummingbirds are not going to know. To go
I can see Allie hummingbird feeder or wind chimes, honey.
Wait, Allison, whoa! The hummingbird that is bullshit, champion. I would be peeved. I would be
and
vexed.
hummingbirds are smart. They come back every year. They know where the food is. I'm like, they're not going to know to go in the backyard. This is a catastrophe. Okay, my hummingbirds are not going to be happy.
They're the most astonishing, amazing animals.
Yeah. And there's nothing better than watching cats eat them. No, I'm kidding, guys.
Actually, a hummingbird will just play with a cat until a cat is like, I can't. No,
they're faster than that.
They're fast. They're fast, but the cats are stealthy. No, Tim, say hello to everybody.
Hey, everybody. While my microphone goes up and down in volume and drives me absolutely batshit crazy. How's everybody doing? And welcome to this edition of the Wednesday Night Live Show, episode 100. And so let's say hi to the wonderful crowd that decided to show up and hang out with us tonight. Pam Spraggins right in the lead, crossed the finish line first. Right in the lead, and then right behind her is Allie. Allie showed up. Good to see you, Allie. Nice to see you on the show. Steve Todnam, great to see you, sir. How have you been? James R. You like pirate? James R.
James from Australia.
Let's see who else is down. Addie Tooney in the house. Redden's here. Everybody's all the Aussies are here. We're popular.
I can't say oi. I forgot.
We're popular.
We have a huge album breaking in Belgium. Yeah,
exactly. Let's see. Tom Morowitz in the house. Good to see you, Tom. How you been? Every time I say Tom, a little pitter patter in my heart. I think of our Tom all the time. I know he's around and he's doing well. Steve's Vapes. Good to see you. And I think I got everybody. My scroll bar made it from the top to the bottom. Look at my beautiful canine self.
Luscious hair, that Tim Rock.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, we're going to get to a little bit to get to know you, Greg. So I want you to pick a number from 1 to 8. Pick a number from 1 to 8. Which number?
I was going to pick 69, but that's not an option. I'll pick 6.
6.
Uh-oh, here we go.
If you got an hour alone in the White House, what would you do?
Clean up all Biden's messes.
They said an hour.
Is there an hour?
That was very well restrained. Thank you, Counselor.
Is there a mop big enough for that?
Oh man, I was expecting
big enough.
Yeah, Ali made a good point. You only have an hour. So. Oh, guys. All right. Allie, you can go ahead and start questions.
All right.
You were there with him. Right?
Obviously, I watched your Regulator Watch episode. It was excellent, very informative.
Thank you.
So, unfortunately, we missed you at the E-Cig Summit because you were fighting the good fight. Can you tell us a little bit about what happened in court and what you think, could possibly be, the next outcome or steps?
Well, I'll explain to everybody what we had what is called an en banc rehearing. And that it means the entire Fifth Circuit bench of active judges, 16 judges, reheard this case. Originally, a panel of 3 judges heard it and decided 2-1 against the industry. Well, one of the judges on that court, and we believe it was Judge Jones who wrote the dissent, asked for a poll of the other judges after Eric Heyer filed for rehearing for Triton, and that a majority of the judges voted to grant rehearing, so they granted it. We go down there, and if you listen to the audio, you get a sense of how things went, but being there and seeing the body language of both the lawyer for the FDA and the other judges was rather interesting. I've had a number of people reach out and say that they listened to the audio and that they thought the FDA's lawyer was really nervous. Her voice was cracking. She seemed to be very unsure about things. Well, her body language was just as uncomfortable. She was not liking being there. And
is this the counsel for the FDA in this particular case?
Yes, Lindsay Powell. And I've seen her argue before. She argued the Nicopure cases both at trial and on appeal. She's really good. She's
been around for a bit, I think, hasn't she?
Yeah, she's their one that they go to in all their big cases. Well, everybody has an off day, and maybe she saw the handwriting on the wall and knew what she was walking into. And if you read the Reynolds stay opinion, you get a pretty good feel for how this court's oriented. Okay.
Fairly conservative bunch, I would say.
Very, very conservative. Judge Oldham, who is the one who wrote the surprise switcheroo opinion back in October of 2012 or 2021 for Triton, sat there and through most of her argument just had a smirk on his face. And he would look over at Judge Duncan. And Judge Duncan, if you remember the news a few weeks ago, that he's the one that got heckled by the students at Stanford Law School. Okay. Oldham would lean over and say something to Duncan, and they would laugh. This was during Lindsay Powell's argument.
The justices are laughing.
Laughing at her.
The judges, whatever it was he would say would make her laugh, or whatever Oldham would say to Duncan would make him laugh. And this is going on during Lindsay Powell's argument. And both of them asked some very pointed hypotheticals that lead you to believe that they're on our side. Jones left nothing to doubt that she's on our side. That was pretty apparent. What a lot of people don't realize is that the very next day in that same courtroom was the case against FDA involving the abortion pill. And that was a 3-judge panel, Judge Elrod, and she asked quite a few questions. In our case, they were sort of neutral, but I think she's going to be on our side because she was also on the stay panel for Triton 18 months ago. And Judge Jones asked a lot of questions, and the one that was just shrill out of the box asking questions is the one who voted against us originally, Haynes. She does not like us. And some others asked some interesting questions, but nothing really big. Well, Judge Ho is a Trump appointee. And he did not ask a single question during our argument, but he was sitting there taking notes, listening very carefully. In the abortion pill argument the next day, FDA's lawyer goes first. And she is arguing that what the trial court did in blocking this pill was unprecedented. And that, this was, violates all the rules of deferring to the agency and so forth and so forth. Really took a harsh tone. And Judge Ho, right out of the box, said to her, counsel, you really need to dial back this idea that the agency can do no wrong. We have an authority to oversee the agency like we do any other agency and to review what they do like any other agency. And he says, we heard a case yesterday involving FDA and, so forth, so forth, so forth. And I'm sort of like, okay, he's probably on our side. And Judge Wilson, who was on the Triton State panel, also didn't ask really that much in our case, asked a ton of questions. And particularly to our issue is he was focusing with the pill on the FDA's failure to consider certain key critical issues that were important. Well, that's exactly what's at issue in Triton, is that they considered key aspects of the problem they refused to consider. That makes me think he's on our side. So fast forward to yesterday, Reynolds now has to file its merits briefs. It got its stay. It has to file its merits brief in its case, its menthol case. And it was supposed to file them sometime in June. It had asked for a 30-day extension till the 12th of July to file its brief. And part of the reasoning was they wanted to let the Triton panel rule before they had to file their brief. And it didn't take more than an hour or two to the court granted the motion, which makes me think that Triton's going to be decided sooner rather than later.
Well, that would be great as long as they decide in our favor. But I think it's true. The rest of the cases kind of give you an idea of that they're not impressed with what the FDA is doing all around.
Yeah. That's true. And if you listen to the oral arguments that have happened in other cases in the last couple months, the Fonham case was argued in D.C. back in February. The Magellan case was argued in Fonham was argued in January. Magellan was argued in February in New York. And then the JTI Logic case was argued a couple weeks ago in Philadelphia. And more the judges are getting smart to what's going on. And they're asking different kinds of questions than they asked in some of the earlier cases. Because the more longer we've gone along, we've found a lot of things to question. The memos that came out of the Logic case this last summer that made it very clear that Brian King overruled the Office of Science after they had said, we're going to approve menthol. It shows politics over science. The Reagan-Udall report coming out is given some insight. And then certainly the letter that Representative Comer and House Oversight has sent to FDA gives some oversight, insight as to what's going on. The more information comes out and the longer this plays out, the better it looks for us.
Yeah. Is there a present of flavors being banned on any other product? I tried to look that up before. Has there been another product that's out there that has gone this same route due to flavors?
I don't think so.
They banned flavored tobacco cigarettes.
Take the tobacco cigarette part out of it. But I'm just wondering if there's ever been anything else that has gone through an issue with flavors.
I can't say so. Now I remember years and years ago, you couldn't get red M&Ms and things like that because the red dye had been banned. That was years ago.
This is a little different.
Yeah.
The health food industry had a similar type situation in California with flavors, but we're going back a number of years now. They were trying to use specific flavors that were naturally extracted, but they were having reactions with the people that were using them. Yeah. So no, there was something there a long time ago.
Yeah, because every one of the flavors that we use in our products has already been FDA approved.
Correct, but when you're working with natural flavorings, that's where it becomes a little different. Because some of these are actually going through the process of being tested. But
when you say natural flavorings, are we talking about something that actually requires preservatives?
Correct.
Okay, got it.
Yeah,
you just
these are natural flavorings.
Too organic because that can turn into something really not good for you.
That was the issue with it, and I can remember that's probably 10 years ago, 10 or 15 years ago.
11th grade chemistry.
Yeah, I was just wondering that the other day, just if anything, any other product has ever gone through this, whether it's been through the FDA or just another government agency going after flavors in general, as you know, because I mean, other than that, that's their only argument. I mean, with us is the flavoring with kids. You take that away, they have nothing.
Go ahead. is, that was one of the things that sort of came out in the argument last week, is that it's not the flavors that are driving the kids' use, it's the type of device.
Correct.
It's the bloody fact that they're kids and they're going to try whatever they haven't.
Yeah.
The longer the myth of flavors hooking kids, and the longer, and I say this with a great deal of interest in getting these agencies to stop making a non-issue an issue, the more that they campaign and use these scare them straight tactics, the more likely they are to be bent, and they're going to try. It's the oldest adage in the book.
Absolutely.
And it's incredible that they are screwing this up.
The minute you tell kids they can't do something or they shouldn't do something, they are going to die trying.
Yeah.
And kids want to do something that adults are doing because adults are doing it and they feel like it makes them like an adult. And so they're going to try. They're curious about it. When you make something hands off, don't touch the hot stove, don't touch the hot stove, but you don't explain why you shouldn't touch the hot stove.
That is my favorite Jim McDonald story.
It's not something that is just the kids. I remember when I was in high school, when I worked at McDonald's, and as soon as they would yell, we're out of something up in the bin back in the old days, that's what everybody would order. The next 5 people would order that. As soon as they heard you're out of it, that's what the next 5 people would order. Yeah. People always want what they can't have or they shouldn't have. And it's as soon as you tell the kids, don't do this, that's the worst thing you can do. And create a moral panic. The kids do it just to see you have a panic.
Here's what we have now. We have a generation of young people who are absolutely tuned in. They understand when they're being lied to. They know immediately when they're being sold a bill of goods that's just...
I've noticed you're right on the money, Philip, because I've noticed the change with my grandson Aiden. He is a lot smarter on when he knows I'm lying. Like with his mom, when same age, I could get away with murder with those kids. I would tell him, no, Disneyland is closed for the next 6 months. And they would agree. Okay, Dad, no problem. Now with information at their fingertips, these kids.
But here's what breaks my heart. And I mentioned this when I was speaking before the Alabama House of Representatives. And I said, kids, teenagers, they know when they're being lied to. They understand the nature of these products. They know that these campaigns are exaggerated to be kind. And the only people that are getting fooled by all of this are the people that need the information the most.
All the
adults who are smoking, and more importantly, disadvantaged lower income adults who are smoking. They are the ones who are actually frankly, it breaks my heart.
Quite frankly, the kids find these campaigns to be insulting to their intelligence.
Well, hell, they are.
I mean, we're all DARE kids. How did DARE work for you guys?
Yeah.
It was a source of many a laugh in high school. We chuckled heartily.
Yeah. Those campaigns were as stupid 40 years ago when we were in high school.
Exactly.
As they are now. The fact is, these kids are more mature. They're more savvy. Yeah. And they're telling us, you look at the NYTS, they're telling us they don't want to smoke. They have no intention of smoking ever.
But
they do want to do risky things. And, that's one of the things Judge Jones asked, what's the harm in kids vaping if they're not smoking?
Well, this is particularly egregious because we're not talking about campaigns exaggerating the harms of secondhand smoke or smoking or chew, whatever, where there are, harms, albeit not as, great as what they have on their poster. We're talking about a campaign to undermine that which can help so many people. Stop the behavior that's killing them. And
I'm going to throw this out here, and I may get pilloried for saying it, but I'm going to say it anyways. I think it's the honest to God's truth.
God damn it, Greg! Don't go crazy on me here.
FDA, I think, had a pre-orchestrated plan to ban all of the flavored products. It needed a justification for that, and youth usage was that justification. That explains to me the reason why FDA has not gone after the disposables until now, because it needed the kids to use the disposables to keep that narrative going. Now that it's banned everything, it doesn't need the disposables anymore, and it's starting to go after them.
So do you believe that this is essentially, I agree with you. I believe the FDA is playing dirty in all kinds of ways. I'd like to know what you think in as few words as possible, what their motivations are. Is it ideological? Is it they are simply puppets to certain members of the Senate, the House, whatever, the Dick Durbins of the world? And it's horrible because I never ever wanted this to become a political issue. This shouldn't be a political issue, but the fact is it's mostly Democratic lawmakers who are so overly their brains have fallen out completely over this, and I simply don't know why. But what do you believe the FDA's motivation for being less than genuine about what they have in mind?
You have to remember, CTP was created by the Tobacco Control Act. It's now a staff bureaucracy. That bureaucracy has to feed itself. Okay, it has to show its justification for existing.
So you believe ideology and self-preservation?
It's the self-preservation. When you created a federal agency, it never is going to get smaller. It's only going to get bigger. And the fact is, if smoking goes down, they've got less to regulate. They have to justify their existence. They need smoking. They need smoking at a certain level. Yeah. The anti-tobacco groups need smoking at a certain level. Why? Fundraising, grant money. They have to study the problem. They keep studying the problem to death. They never reach a conclusion, but it's always studying. It's like the dog chasing the car. Yeah. What happens if the dog catches the car?
Yeah, I mean, at that E-Cig summit, when Brian King spoke, he was mentioning how many PMTAs they had to go through, and they're so, so much. They were drowning in these PMTAs, and he even said E-Cig, like they don't pay user fees in his speech, and I'm like, so that's the justification? So charge us some fucking user fees. Like, why is that the justification for blanket denials? Because there's no incentive because we don't pay user fees?
Oh, yeah. And of course, we love to hear the FDA bitch about how we need to stop suing them so they can ban more stuff.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to me, it's kind of stupid. I mean, here we have everyone is trying to comply. Everyone is trying to get these forms done and sent into the FDA. This is an opportunity to create some more revenue, get it out there, get a whole new shit. Start another agency just dedicated to e-cigarettes. I don't care. You want to continue to keep building.
The last thing we need is another government agency.
Well, I know. I'm thinking for them. But they got an opportunity of an industry that's willing to comply. We're willing to comply. We're sending the information that you need. But you're like we talk about, they keep changing the rules. They keep moving the goalposts. And this is an opportunity to put a product out there, which I know they know is safer and is going to do less harm. And they get a chance to regulate it and get fees each month or each year to keep these businesses in
plus they've invested thousands. I don't know how many millions in a low nicotine mandate over the years, and they've just got to see that through, right?
Congress would have to approve any user fees against us. Yeah, it's a congressional. It's part of the Tobacco Control Act are the user fees. We're not part of that because Congress didn't put us in there.
Yeah.
Well, because we're not tobacco. It just blew my mind that he even mentioned that when he was making his. They don't pay user fees, and I'm like, okay, like.
See, this is where I become very confused. I mean, product categorization is just all over the board here. If you have a product that contains nicotine, what kind of? I mean, they are literally making this up as they go along. This is not anything that the Tobacco Control Act has addressed necessarily, although I do believe there's a certain amount in there inherent about harm reduction.
You're absolutely right. And part of the problem is the politicalization of this goes to the very root of it. The whole notion of deeming back in 2014 when they first proposed the deeming, they had to get that. They wanted to get that done and get that out while Obama was still in office.
Yeah.
Because they were under tremendous pressure to do that. normally this kind of a thing, that the rollout of the deeming rule and all of the downstream regulations that have to take place, we're not talking about just issuing the deeming rule. There's all sorts of downstream things that have to occur. The unfolding of that would normally take a decade, in my estimation, 8 to 10 years to make all that downstream rulemaking.
People who smoke don't have 8 to 10 years.
Yeah.
But no, the problem is we should have had to have been doing from the time the deeming rule came out in 2016. Ideally, we wouldn't even be having to do a PMTA till 2026 or 2028.
Well, here we are. We were essentially told that this was going to be streamlined because of the relative risk, because of how this is a product that could conceivably displace cigarettes and create an opportunity for people to use a substitute that is much healthier. So what are we looking at now as far as, by the way, just for everyone out there and for myself, user fees would entail what, just in a monetary and a financial burden on industry?
What would happen, it would be much more difficult to do user fees for the vape industry than it is for tobacco. What they do is it's based on consumption of combustible tobacco right now. And so if, say, RJ Reynolds has 30% of the market share, they have to pay a certain amount of fees to FDA based on consumption. Same with Altria, same with whoever. There's fewer cigarette companies than there are vape companies. So it'd be much more difficult to manage on our end of this.
Yeah.
So you've got that. It would take Congress giving them the approval and coming up with a formula to how to calculate this.
A formula to impose fees on companies for moving toward a non-lethal product based on the previous lethal product.
What we really need is legislation that's passed that takes us out of the tobacco control act. It keeps us under the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act and under FDA. It takes us out from under the TCA, and it creates a new subcategory or new category for harm reduction products.
Mm-hmm.
And
Correct.
we don't have to. We have an application requirement, but it's not like the PMTA.
Yeah.
We don't have to do all these long-term studies and all sorts of things like that, because we know as a general class that these products are less harmful. And FDA knows this.
Yeah, they have registered. We have to register every single ingredient and everything that we use. So they know what's in it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They have an opportunity to actually regulate a product that's going to help people and keep track of it. I mean, there's no better way. Do you feel that would take away some of the black market if things were a lot easier for this industry and the availability was there at each and every vape shop that you go to? You would kind of somewhat eliminate the black market, that illicit market.
I think we're all in favor of regulation. I think.
Yeah, we are in favor of regulation.
Absolutely.
Fair regulation.
Yeah.
A fair regulation that reflects what the product that we're talking about here.
Yeah, you wouldn't totally eliminate the black market, but you would greatly reduce it.
Reduce it, yeah. I mean, that's the goal. That is the goal. I mean, to be honest, I mean, kids aren't getting, well, they're three places, right? Let's be honest. They're getting it off the street, from a best friend or a relative.
What are we talking about here? Are we talking disposables?
Disposables.
Anything that's
anything. Kids aren't carrying this. They don't want this. This doesn't fit in their skinny jeans. It wouldn't work. It wouldn't work. Craig, 1 through 8. You already picked 6.
Let's go with 3.
3. Your first job, and did you quit or get fired?
My first job was when I was in middle school, was a paper route, and I got tired of getting up.
Yeah, me too.
Cheers to all the people who slept in and got fired.
Yeah. The worst day of a paper boy is the day it rains, and you had to put them all in the bags. That was the worst.
No. The worst day was Christmas fell on a Sunday, and it was 5 below zero.
Yeah, for you. I'm in California, so it doesn't rain. It doesn't rain very often, and when it does, and you have to put all those papers in the bag. Did you quit or did you get fired?
No, I quit. I gave it up.
Did Did you go out with a bang, or did you just say I quit and walked away?
I gave them however much notice I had to do, and
So you went you did the professional route. No one I've asked yet. I'm going to get somebody one of these days that's going to give me that I quit story. That's just amazing. I took a shit on the guy's car. I'm going to get that story one of these days from somebody that's done that.
Oh, I've done some shenanigans and some jobs and stuff in high school and so forth and in college. I just never got caught. It's the problem.
Yeah. Don't disclose those. You're live on the show.
yeah, you don't understand. I have a professional license too that I need to hold on.
When I was in high school, I said I worked at McDonald's. We had a bunch of older guys who a lot of them used drugs.
No.
So I somehow got a copy of the letterhead from the restaurant, and I did a fake drug testing memo and put it on the employee bulletin board.
Oh man.
People were freaking. People were coming to me. Hey, can you give us some pee? Can you give us some pee? I did highbrow stuff. Highbrow stuff.
Yeah, you didn't mess around.
Do that before me? And how much did you charge?
That's not.
It was fake. It was fake. Even some of the managers thought it was real.
Yeah. Oh man.
moving on. No.
Go ahead. No, Paul, do you have a question, Paul? You've been quiet.
I've got a number of questions at the moment.
How are you feeling? Sorry, you look.
No, Greg, this one's going to be very interesting. With the bigger court cases going on currently in the United States against the FDA, how much of what Australia is doing and their arse-ended laws that they're trying to bring into play, is that also becoming an impact on what the judges are thinking, or are they seeing through the bullshit and going, no, FDA is completely out of order now, and we're going to hit you on the head and go, go back and come back with a proper answer for us?
Well, what's funny was during the oral argument last Tuesday, Judge Haynes, who is clearly against us, cited Australia as, an example of how they're getting it right.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. Now, Jones sort of cut her off at the knees and, didn't let her go much further with that. But, the way our law is written and the way our administrative law is written, the court looks for arbitrariness.
Yeah.
And especially this court, the Fifth Circuit, is the most conservative of the federal appeals courts.
And how many appeals courts are there?
There's 11 regional appeals courts located throughout the U.S. and regional. There's, I live in Kentucky. We're in the Sixth Circuit in Cincinnati. It's Michigan, Kentucky, Ohio, and Tennessee. Just right across the river is Indiana, which is in the Seventh Circuit, which is Indiana, Illinois, and Wisconsin. The Fifth Circuit is Louisiana, Texas, and Mississippi. Any case or smart lawyers that are filing anything involving administrative cases are trying to get them venued in one of those Fifth Circuit states to end up in the Fifth Circuit, because the Fifth Circuit has been taking a wrecking ball to the agencies the last several years.
And is it the only of the Fifth Circuit? Yes, the Fifth Circuit is comprised of extremely conservative justices. Would you say that it is very unlike the Sixth, or
the Sixth is pretty conservative, as is the Seventh.
Okay, I'm sorry, you said there are 11?
There's 11 regional circuits. The most liberal is probably the Ninth out in San Francisco, but it covers the largest geographic area.
And so these cases are heard by a specific circuit court based on what?
Well, for instance, how Reynolds was able to file their case, because they're located in
they have to be located.
And how they would normally go to the appeals court in Richmond, the Fourth Circuit in Richmond. How they were able to bring their case on their MDO in the Fifth Circuit is they partnered up with some affiliate in Mississippi.
Right. I think somebody talked about that before, where they have to have a business in that area to.
Yeah,
actually
that was yeah, I can't remember his name right now. The other lawyer that we had on, he was trying, yeah, Jared, and he was saying when they were going to try their case that they had to demographically file somewhere so that they could get that particular court.
Well, and let me give you a little insight too, is that if in fact Triton wins, and if they win the way we think they're going to win, it will all depend on how far the court goes in granting relief. If they say this only applies to Triton, the rest of you are on your own, that's not good for us, but there's possibly some things we can do to parlay that into something good for the industry. If they go as far as saying this was illegal, we're not going to allow FDA to do this for anybody, then we're sitting pretty. And it almost forces FDA to go to the Supreme Court. If the court takes the latter, the former position, we need to find an avenue to be able to bring a case somewhere in one of those Fifth Circuit courts, one of those district courts within one of those 3 states, preferably Texas, for someone who did not file for review of their PMTA denial, and ask the court to enter a nationwide injunction against FDA.
This is absolutely absurd. I mean, I appreciate everything that the legal system is doing for the good of people who deserve harm reduction and deserve these products, but this is just a goddamn circus.
Yeah. For us that are not in these courtrooms, give us a typical question that one of the judges would ask you guys. Because I'm kind of curious what type of questions they're asking you, because we're not there. We're never going to see that, right? They're not televised. They're not on
you can listen
Did
to
you
the
touch the fentanyl?
No.
Did you touch it?
There, a lot of them, because you have to remember, they're not subject matter experts in this.
Right. That's what I was thinking as well.
One of the questions that Judge Jerry Smith asked last week was really good, because the record reflects that a number of the big tobacco companies got multiple deficiency letters well before the PMTA deadline saying, hey, you've got issues with this. Here's how we need you to update this. Well, our side, small folks, never got those. He was asking about that for an explanation of why some got deficiency letters and some didn't.
Yeah. Well, it was right there in that FOIA request that they were going to prioritize the top companies.
The top companies.
Yeah. And so, it leads to a conclusion that it was arbitrary in a number of respects. It's sort of arbitrary upon arbitrary. That's why Eric Heyer sort of took and started out his argument the other day with some examples of specimens of the products. And actually, Judge Duncan sort of smiled when he was given the show and tell at the beginning of the argument. These judges don't know, a jewel from
right. Yeah.
And he gives them some context into what these products are. And it really is trying to help them. I mean, it's really hard to tell from panel to panel what they're going to ask for. They mainly focus on the record, what FDA's done, what they haven't done, what efforts maybe we made to try to do a test, what would be involved in a test, how long a test would have to last, those kind of things.
Okay. Yeah, I was always wondering what type of questions they asked in there, especially like you talked about some of them. You can tell by just their questions that they're not for this whatsoever, and they want to see it go away. What is a typical question from one of those judges?
Like, for instance, Judge Haynes, when she was asking about, Australia, I know Judge Costa, he's no longer on the court. He was at the original panel, and he asked Eric Heyer, he goes, do adults really use the, Jimmy the Spaceman, whatever, grape, whatever, and
Jimmy the Juice Man? Hell yes, we do. Thank you. Jimmy's a good guy.
Jimmy's a good guy.
Someone asked about unicorn puke or something like that, or that kind of thing, which, quite frankly, that's a terrible branding name. I'm sorry.
It was a seller, though. It was a seller.
If you can have a hard seltzer,
it was
called
unicorn.
Ass, I mean, come on.
Unicorn poop.
Yes,
it was unicorn poop,
and it's an ill-advised brand name. Yeah, that's.
And, they would get into child branding and that kind of thing, and how are these kids getting these products would be a question they would ask. they would ask questions about maybe the marketing channels, the retail channels, and the difference between the two, which one has the largest stake, things like that.
Yeah, I mean, do you feel when you're in court, it is kind of because I think you said something about it already, but do you feel like they've been briefed enough?
These are adult products; they can be marketed.
Yeah. Do you think?
Generally, what happens is they've read the briefs and they've done research and read some of the pertinent cases. They also have had their law clerks.
Okay. Yeah.
And their law clerks actually are sitting in the courtroom as these cases are being argued, taking notes. Because who really writes the opinions, or at least the first draft of the opinions? A 25-year-old.
Yeah, so I was to say there, who's probably vaping.
Yeah, probably vaping, but he needs to get a really good recommendation from you.
And so, they also pass memos around, and the clerks will draft what's called a bench memo that they will give to the judges and maybe have questions for them.
Mm-hmm. And as lawyers and their side as well, are you giving them some information firsthand before these trials start?
That's what the briefs do.
That's part of your okay. Yeah, that's what I just kind of wonder, because like you said, to me, most of these guys are in their late 50s, early 60s. So probably cigar smoking, like you said, they don't have a clue what a jewel looks like. They have no idea what a lost vape is. They have no idea of any of these products.
There we go.
But the Fifth Circuit is the number of judges that are under 50.
Wow.
Hey, Rog.
Under 50.
Yeah. I know Oldham's fairly young. I think Duncan is like maybe just turned 50. Some of these people are not very old. Elrod's 56, I think, maybe. She was a Bush appointee. Some of these judges are young. Now, like Jones is in their mid-70s, but she is sharp as a tack.
Yeah. And one more question before I let everybody. Do they also have economic impact reports for what could happen in these No.
No, they won't. Now, that's something you flesh out, you put in the brief.
Okay.
And to show you how some of these judges are so not subject matter experts. And this was a funny story that years ago, back in the 60s, when you've heard the expression, you don't know what obscenity is, but you know it when you see it. Yeah. You've heard that before. Well, the case that was being argued in the Supreme Court, and these judges were having to sit back in chambers and watch some of the videos that were in the record. And some of these old men had no idea what they were seeing, and their 25-year-old law clerks were having to explain to them what they were watching.
That's scary.
That's really what it is. A lot of these judges are not subject matter experts. They're generalists, and they're very busy generalists.
Yeah. So you guys have to be really precise with what you're writing and what information you're giving to them in these briefs.
That's why, for instance, I did the amici briefs for the industry in Eric's case. And Eric and I talked before I did the briefs, and I had an idea what he wanted me to do. And I sort of gave a demographic, overview of the industry, the products, how they came about, the history of them, FDA's regulatory history with regard to tobacco in general and our industry in particular, and just some of the, aspects of that gives the court some context for what Eric's talking about.
Okay.
So did you find, if you gave them the background of how these products came about, was that helpful in their understanding and appreciation for what these products are?
I think so. And I think they realize that we're dealing with two different industry aspects here, two different elements of the industry. The closed system industry, the pods, disposables, and then the open tank side. And there's a distinct difference between the two.
Mm.
Well, you have, yes.
Yeah.
That's
one. And that's an issue. Every politician I've spoken to, it thinks everything's a jewel.
Yeah.
They believe that jewel is just a general name for every vape. It's
right, but they think they're all small, discreet. They don't realize that there's a difference. That's all they think of.
And that's the thing I've argued in the industry amici briefs, and then in my merits case for Gripham, is that FDA was arbitrary in putting both segments in the same basket when it came to presuming that youth usage, matters regarding youth usage and the effective flavors. That, the open system has a much lower risk of youth use and actual youth use than the closed system does. And that it's arbitrary to say we're applying the same rule to you as we are to the others that have a higher risk.
But so does it have a very, very low instance of usage with older smokers who want to light a cigarette and
That's
smoke.
correct. That's correct.
It's a very, let's just say not everyone is as tech savvy or
Right.
prone to gadget as we might be. So there is absolutely a market, and an important one for disposables, and extremely simple and effective.
And actually, what's funny, I was on the AVM bus tour last fall with Amanda.
Good stuff.
And our driver is an over-the-road trucker. On the coach was an over-the-road trucker. He was talking about how truckers love disposables because they have to be mostly hands-free, and the big tanks they can't deal with, but they
Right.
can't deal with the disposables. And the number of truckers that vape, because a lot of them can't smoke in the rigs.
Yep.
Right.
I wish I had vaped when I was in my truck. Well, don't they know, what was it called, Timmy? The Easy Dripper, the one that used to stick on the windshield.
Yeah,
I don't know if you guys remember that. I know Paul remembers the Easy Dripper.
Man, you just did that. Looks like an udder or something. I can't utter. One of the two.
Cow, Phillip. Milking
Yeah,
the cow.
yeah, milking a
Okay,
cow.
well,
it used to be this device thing as a little
just don't-
tank.
Don't go
You
diagonal.
can't do that up here. is
Yeah,
all
you
I'm
can't.
saying.
You can't go. Yeah, no, it used to stick on your
An old
windshield.
man at a deli sending back
Yeah,
a bowl
yeah.
of soup.
And you would just take your RDA and hit it, and it would spew e-liquid into your RDA, so you didn't have to hold the bottle. It was stuck to your windshield like your cell phone holder, and it was a little tank, and you just take your device and hit it underneath it, and it would just fill up your RDA.
John, I love my Sobone. I love all these gadgets that I have, but my mom has finally started using a vaping device, and it's one of these.
Yep. No,
And
I
it's
got it.
taken me 10 years.
They need
figure
to
out-
That's our
exist.
biggest argument too, right? Is prohibition doesn't work. But then there's so many people that are like, well, we should get rid of disposables. And I'm like, you're going against your own argument here. If it works for one person,
Right.
that's one more smoker that's not smoking anymore. It should be available.
And this is made by Geek Vape, S'more, whomever, whatever.
Vape, it's the Raz, right?
I'm sorry. This is
The
actually the Raz, and it's a flavor called something tropical. It's fantastic.
Well, I had someone say something and it made me laugh. He goes, well, why don't you just keep the disposables, but only make them available at the convenience store. So when it gets out of hand, they can go after the convenience stores. And I thought to myself, that's not going to
Let's
work.
waste more time. Yeah, please. That sounds
Ideally, these would be remanded to adult-only stores.
Right. That's what New Zealand does. New Zealand, you can only buy tobacco and menthol products in a gas station or milk, whatever the guy called it. And they have
dairy.
adult shops only. Yeah, there you go. And they have adult shops only for flavors. Yeah. And they're one of the lowest smoking rates in the world. Like, so maybe they're doing something right here by taking that approach and having it be in like a liquor store in a controlled situation where you can only go in if you're going in to buy that product, so you have to be 21 years old.
If they want to do that with cigarettes, I would be behind it.
Yeah, they were trying to do that. New York and California. I remember when they banned smoking in bars, and the bar owners thought, well, why don't we just have a membership, and you have to be a member to come in. To now they can't stop you from smoking in the bar because technically you're 21 and you agreed to be able to smoke in this bar.
Right.
You know what?
The problem with that model of putting in an adult-only location is the convenience store lobby is going to lose their minds if they tried that. And they are very powerful.
Yes, they are.
I believe that you should be able to get these products, and they should be regulated wherever cigarettes are available, because obviously cigarettes aren't going. And I don't believe that we should be so bold or, arrogant as to think that a low nicotine standard is going to change the world. It's absolutely an unknown, but mostly there are plenty of studies to show that. There was one that just came out, Johns Hopkins researcher Johnson. Johns Hopkins school. He's anyway, he came out with a study that basically showed that in a low nicotine scenario where everything has been mandated, very low nicotine, adults will break the law to find regular strength cigarettes, and a black market will flourish.
Or they will use more of the low nicotine.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's less certain. Well, but what we do know is this: adults, who are only given these low nicotine cigarettes, which I've not tried one, but I've heard that they are literally like starter cigarettes with training wheels.
They're training wheels.
Training wheels, baby.
Yeah, perfect for kids who want to move on to whatever 20th century red. But the point is, whether or not a few people lose interest in smoking and quit because of the low nicotine mandate, the vast majority are going to seek out satisfying cigarettes elsewhere, which of course will now be a crime, and we're criminalizing people who are smoking once again. Well, it's just
here's an idea. I know it's crazy, but why not go after the actual criminal? I don't care if it's a kid. I don't care.
Why not hold the parent accountable?
Yeah, hold the parent.
That's kind of what I was thinking. No, do not. Alabama tried to give fines to kids who and put them in jail for getting caught with a vape. I said, "Are you crazy?"
Yeah, make them pick up garbage at the park. Make them humiliate them, man. Make them pick up garbage at the park. Work on the side of the freeway. I don't care.
Michael came home with Jell-O shots from a party once. I gave him a stern look, and he's like, "Okay, they're Jell-O shots, please." I didn't mean.
Where's mine? You only got 2. No, I'm kidding.
At the time, he was 16, and he's never ever. But if you can, parents, for the love of God, don't expect the government to do it for you.
Yeah, I'm the last one that wants the government to be a parent, and I don't think they should be parenting our kids at all. But you know what? It's time that we go after the actual criminal himself and stop punishing us, because we're not breaking the law. I am 54 years old. I should be able to walk in and buy a mango flavor e-liquid, and not have to worry about, because some kid who decided to he's going to break the law but not be punished for it, and then that same kid is used at these court hearings to talk about how bad vaping is. To me, that is the biggest friggin' bullshit thing I've ever seen in my life.
Ron Marshall proposed a bill out in Montana, not this session, but session before last, that would have imposed penalties on the kids that bought the products illegally. Yeah. The anti-tobacco groups lost their minds opposing it.
Yeah, of course.
And it really opened the eyes of a lot of legislators as to what was going on. And let me tell you, he made heads explode this session when he drafted a bill, didn't introduce it, but drafted it and let word get out that would have banned all combustible tobacco in all tobacco products in Montana.
Ooh.
Word of that got out, and even in D.C.
That would have pissed off all 10 people that live there.
He was getting calls, and the leadership was getting calls from folks in D.C., high up folks in D.C. What are you all thinking about doing out there? And it got the effect he wanted. He wanted to show his colleagues really what was going on, and they got an eyeful, and they were like, okay, now we know where this is going and where these people's loyalties lie.
Yeah.
I'm going to go in Wyoming or Montana, because they won't stand for it.
Montana.
Here, they're openly fining anyone under the age of 18.
Australia doesn't fucking mess around, though. That child is going to prison for 7 years breaking rocks at some friggin' desert. Yeah, no, they don't mess around there.
Yeah, because that makes so much sense in the greater scheme of things. That's going to make them a better person down the line
here in Australia, because the nation's capital, the ACT, Canberra. Okay, their fines were, relatively interesting to start off with. Now they've upped it to $32,000 plus or minus 2 to 5 years in jail if you're caught without a prescription
for personal use.
For personal use. They're now talking like the import, like if you're done with a commercial quantity. Originally, the fine was 220,000 Australian dollars. They're now looking to ramp that up to $1 million. Oh, go no.
Is that 20 or 30 bucks American? I can't remember.
Don't
away. Do that anymore.
If, for argument's sake, they take it from $200,000 for commercial importation of a tobacco product, and this is nicotine vaping products, and they ramp that up to $1 million for the importers, and or 10 years plus jail time, that's some serious coin.
That is serious coin. And,
and
the problem too,
750,000 US.
The problem with that
effect.
too, Paul, is I think people see those numbers here in America, and I think that's one of the reasons it kind of hurts us, the industry, because they see a country like Australia putting these massive fines on e-liquid and importing and having possession. I think it kind of hurts our cause here in a way.
Well, who do you think persuaded Australia to lose their minds?
Yeah, I mean, put it this way: think of it as if you weren't a smoker and not a vapor, and also you're hearing all this stuff, this rumbling about e-liquid, and all of a sudden you hear that Australia is fining $1 million. You start to think, well, maybe this product really is bad, because who's going to find somebody $1 million? All right, here you go. Real quick. There you go. You better answer this right. Yeah, we just became best friends.
You are a scholar and a gentleman, sir.
We just became best friends.
Now, white clams on pizza. White clam pizza.
Okay, that's an abomination unto the Lord. I don't know.
I mean, if you're in Massachusetts, yeah, but if you're anywhere else,
I'm in Alabama. That you will get.
You've never had Frank Pepe's New Haven style pizza.
Pepe's pizza.
I'm Canadian Jewish in Alabama. I get beat up for that.
Yeah.
You put that crazy, I can't pronounce, Conago or whatever it is, sausage on your pizza.
Pardon me, Kaneka?
Whatever it is that however you pronounce it.
Capicola. You're talking about Capicola.
It's.
Are you talking Italian or?
No, it's Alabama. It's some name of some sausage down there.
Well, there's a brand called Kaneka sausage.
Kaneko. Yeah, you put Kaneko sausage on everything.
I do. I do.
I do.
Yeah, it's actually pretty good on Canela and
well, we're good. We're best friends now because not too many.
I dig
people,
it with my bitter herb.
It's not too many people. Everyone seems to be voting yes on that pineapple one. And then one more real quick, because this is always a fun one.
Frisk car wash.
Oh, I did that. That was my bad. That was my bad.
Hey,
Greg, if you
brand new Mustang.
You too? Jesus Christ.
You actually told me this. We were in a conversation on Facebook 1,000 years ago, and you told me that story. And a pretty interesting story. Anyway, my youngest brother, who is no longer with us, his first and least, as it turns out, the car that he didn't drive well was a Mustang V8, decked out and all that kind of stuff. Never blame the car, blame the driver. But yes, I appreciated your story on that one.
Who we had? What's his name on? He was 2 weeks ago. Was also a Mustang too. What year, Greg?
It was in 87.
Oh, 87.
5.0.
No, it wasn't a 5.0. I couldn't. My parents would say no.
You had good parents, Greg.
And but it was fine. Then my second brand new car after I traded that in was a BMW, and I've had one ever since.
I learned my lesson with those cars.
I simply am not going to disclose
my first car. I think Phil's with me on the BMW.
I love
the BMW. What are those?
I love my 340.
a 340, as in, okay, the 340 is
340i.
340IX.
Why don't you just get them? Okay, forget it.
It will fly.
Buy a Mercedes or an Audi for the love of God. Please stop screwing around with like the kids stuff.
And we'll do one more before we jump into serious questions, because you're a lawyer and I'm kind of curious because you guys hear some good jokes. So tell us your favorite joke. I forgot that you were a lawyer because I would have had some really good lawyer jokes for you, but I held back.
And actually, I would laugh at all of them because they're all funny.
Yeah.
Oh boy, my favorite joke. Gee, I've heard so many. It's really hard to tell. It seriously, it's hard to tell. I've heard so many jokes.
Yeah. You don't want to hit us with one?
I can't.
You can't. You're on the spot.
It's my favorite. I've heard so many that are just rib splitters that you forget them over time, and there's been so many. I just can't have one pop in my mind.
Yeah, that's what's going to happen an hour from now. You're going to be like, oh, that's what I do when you get put on this.
My middle brother.
You have
Go
one,
ahead.
Phil? You have one?
No. I was going to say my younger brother Jason is a lawyer.
I've had some funny stories in the legal profession. You run into also. I'll tell you this one. It'll substitute as a joke. There's a lawyer here in town who's notorious for using profanity in court. And this judge said to him, Mr. Miscagni, if you curse in my court one more time, I'm going to fine you $50. And without skipping a beat, he looks at the judge and he goes, Judge, is motherfucker one word or two?
I like that. Oh. We can get back to serious topic now.
And of course, the courtroom exploded laughing. The judge knew he'd been had.
Yeah.
That's
Tim,
just not
you've been
nearly
quiet
enough
up there.
to compel anyone.
We need to hear from
say
Timmy.
the word fuck.
Hold on, Timmy.
Sorry, I'm tracing a beach ball.
Are you watching the golf again?
No, I'm not watching
golf.
No, I don't watch anything but pretty much hockey.
Hockey, he's a hockey guy. Huh?
No, my question was kind of going back to when Greg was talking about you could kind of get a pulse on the candor of the judges in the circuit court since there were so many. And I guess my question was more about kind of like the smoke screen, because we listen time and time again to the child argument, and there's a lot of things that can be said about that, but is there any way to sniff out the circuit judges at this point, and they're kind of starting to sort of see through the smoke screen of the consistent child argument? Yep. Like they're starting to ignore it and starting to see it from an adult perspective, and
they're not ignoring it. They're seeing it from the adult perspective, and they're seeing the reality of it. And the reality of it is as the studies go on, there's a reason why FDA keeps focusing on the 2019 NYTS. Okay. Once the age raised to 21 to buy, guess what we started seeing happen to the youth usage rate? Started going down precipitously.
Yeah.
FDA is also intellectually dishonest in how it presents the issue of what it presents things as a current user. And, if a kid goes to a party on Friday night and takes one puff on one vape, they're considered a current user. That's the real metric, because the real metric is regular use 20 or more days a month.
Yeah.
What's that number? Not much.
Yeah.
Number does not drive their narrative.
Yeah. Has that question been asked by a judge?
It really hasn't so much been asked, but it's something that I always focus on in the briefs. Is that I don't say they're being intellectually dishonest. I'm more diplomatic than that. I just say they're wrong, and that they're looking at the wrong number. The real number is the regular use, and it's almost nothing. And I think the judges are beginning to pick up on this. And I think the FDA is really beginning to lose the youth use narrative. And actually, Brian King sort of intimates that in his discussions with his Allison, his thing with him and Greg Connolly. He pretty much admitted that the youth use number is in getting to a place where they're okay with. They're better.
I'm an epidemiologist. I know the definition of an epidemic.
Yeah. There'll never be a zero. Don't forget that. There'll never be a zero.
The fact that
Thank you for pointing that out.
The fact that the NYTS has expanded to really explore other things regarding tobacco usage, especially the number of kids that vape to either quit smoking or in lieu of smoking. The kids that just vape for the heck of it, without any particular reason for it, is extremely low.
Yeah.
And this is also, I've argued this too, is that FDA has to consider, I sort of draw the analogy that appropriate for the protection of public health is like a complex math formula.
There is
where you have the risks on top, the benefits on the bottom is the denominator, and you've got all these different variables for each, as for all these different groups. Well, youth are part of the population as a whole and have to be considered. And what FDA is doing is they're plugging in a real number for risks, but a zero for benefits. And what happens when you're solving a math equation and you don't know a variable and you just plug a fake number in, or you don't like the number? What result do you get? You get a bad result.
Or a bounce check.
And do you believe that? What was the original idea that that standard, that completely nebulous, meaningless standard, was going to be based on population level benefit, and then somewhere along the line it changed to the benefit is the population outweigh the harms to kids, which of course are still yet to be defined as well. Do you believe that that was just the easiest way? I mean, I still to this day cannot understand how they got away with the nature of one day just changing the criteria completely.
That's part, Philip, is part of our argument that they're only considering one aspect of the problem, not the full problem. Is they're isolating that one section, that one element, risk to kids.
But risk to kids, how do you define a nicotine dependency as the risk to kids versus combustible tobacco dependency, which is, let's just say, at adults? I don't even know why we're not having party after party.
He said it's not something that he's willing to accept as a trade-off. If kids, he was asked point blank at the E-Cig summit, if more kids are not smoking and they're moving to vaping, isn't that a good thing? And he said that's not a trade-off I'm willing to make, basically. That it's not something that he sees as a benefit.
He said this in DC at the summit, which is a complete turnabout from what he said during the AVM chat, I believe.
And it's also
he doesn't. Well, he's never going to condone youth vaping. And the question was,
he said as much to the tune of, if we see youth vaping numbers down, we can start.
He lied.
Which is but what I like. So he actually said that. That kids experimenting with what was once contained in a product that kills half of everybody that use it. Okay, so that
not a trade-off he's willing to make.
There are no trade-offs then. I mean, that's simply the fact that he had the gall, the audacity to say that baffles me.
Well, also too, and I'll segue into something I want to mention. The idea of what is appropriate for the protection of public health is sort of ambiguous.
Is he aware of how many kids are huffing compressed air right now?
They don't regulate compressed air.
But the concept,
a very base human being.
The concept of appropriate for the protection of public health is a vague and ambiguous concept. Okay, right now, under the way the administrative law works, since it's ambiguous and FDA has come up with its definition, the courts are supposed to give deference to that definition. Well, there's a case that the Supreme Court has just taken back a couple weeks ago, Loper Bright Enterprises versus Raimondo. She's the head of the Secretary of Commerce, that is looking to change the deference standard that courts apply when an agency has interpreted a vague statute or ambiguous statute. It's the Chevron standard.
The Chevron. Okay, so that's the precedent.
Chevron deference. They are looking, and the lone issue they took is should we keep Chevron? Yeah. Well, obviously, the fact that they've taken it, and we know the bend of some of the majority of the justices on the court is not favorable to Chevron, it's probably going to be changed. Well, this is an opportunity for the industry. And I'm working with Keller Heckman, with Azim and Eric Gotting, to write an amicus brief for the vape industry to file in that case.
Keller Heckman you're working with? Okay.
Yes. And I actually had started working on a draft of the brief. They then contact me and say, hey, we've been hired to, and I think AVM's one of the people that's gotten with them to do that. Yeah. And so we're working together. So the draft that we're working off of is the initial draft that I put together. And so that's something that we really need to get people to help fund in that case. And also, too, Eric Heyer has asked us to do an amicus brief in support of his cert petition in Avail.
Eric who? I'm sorry.
Eric Heyer. He represents Triton. He represents Avail, and they filed for review in the Supreme Court. And so I'm going to be working with Keller Heckman to do a brief in that case as well on behalf of the industry. So this is something that people really need to put some money behind. And
Counsel, just spit it out how much you need.
Well, I don't know how much I need because I'm not the one that's handling this. Keller Heckman's the one handling it.
We're trying to raise $35,000.
Okay, that would be per 35,000 would be good. To get these briefs done.
Transfer that over, John.
Mr. Troutman, you know exactly what I'm talking about here. Yeah. You know down to the last cent exactly what the number is. So give it to me.
I don't know what the number is. They're the one.
We need 35,000. Yeah, we were trying to raise.
Allison's saying 35,000, and she's the one dealing with Keller Heckman. So on behalf of AVM, so
go fund me.
There we go.
To AVM, donate.
Donate. We need to get some money together to help to fund this because the printing costs and all of that are a couple grand just to get the thing printed. And most people don't realize you got to print them in these booklets, and they've got to be. It's like a little book, and it's kind of neat. I've got several in my office that I've done.
35,000 for Kinko's, Greg.
It's like Kinko's. It's the legal cost.
Daddy needs a new floor lamp. I get it. Can we talk really briefly about how this? And I want to help with this.
Toner
how AVM has manufacturer retail members, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So what we're looking for is consumer donations on top of that, basically.
I mean, everybody's money is as green as the next person's.
Well, because I'm a consumer, and I know plenty of stores around here that probably are not AVM members that should be.
Someone said so. Print a book that nobody will read. Actually, that's not true. If you listen to the argument last week, Judge Elrod referenced an argument I made about the user fees in the amici brief. Amici briefs are very important. I know that, and I've heard some of the Supreme Court oral arguments, and they ask questions that come from the amici briefs.
Nice.
They do read them.
Let me skip over to that person on the top right there, the great, amazing Allie. Allie.
Yeah.
She is awesome, isn't she?
What was your feelings after leaving Washington, D.C.? How did you feel things went?
Man, it was epic. I'm just going to say that every single person that had a presentation was showing science and data that literally was telling the FDA that they are fucking up big time. And it was great to watch because Brian King had his opening statement. He left fairly early.
Imagine that.
Exit, Paul, exit what?
We had Kathleen Crosby and Benjamin, what's his name? Alperg or whatever his name is. They were there. They then did a presentation. There's like 4 different segments of the E-Cig Summit, and they were in the last one, or second to last one. And they got a lot of good questions from the audience. I think the mic drop moment of the day was former AG Tom Miller stood up and said, you've heard all of this science and this data. Isn't it time to change what you're doing and start having some success like all of these other countries are having? And obviously a lot of science from the US as well. We had Abigail Friedman from Yale, and we had a lot of great people basically proving the FDA wrong right in front of my face. It was amazing.
Tom Miller is one of my absolute heroes.
It was great. And when of course, the FDA, I think he's the deputy director, Ben, he said, well, he, deferred back to Congress made this, Congress made made us do this basically, always blaming Congress for putting this on them and making the rules the way that they are. And Tom Miller was already sitting down and he was like, well, change the regulatory process then. Like it was epic. Everybody, burst into applause. But I mean, you have people like Clive Bates presenting, and just
when King leaves,
I have to ask this question. Their slideshow, the one still that really does stick in my head. They actually put up their numbers of how many authorizations they've granted versus.
Oh yeah, they pat themselves on the back.
They were trying to curry favor.
Yeah. That's a great thing.
They felt that this was an accomplishment, and the W.
And in their second presentation, they mainly talked about the Truth Campaign and how they find their demographic and the majority of the money, and how it's spent. And it was like Spotify, and I'm like, because adults don't use Spotify, like Hulu and things like that. And
let's just say the feeling I got from Greg was that they were just the worst.
They were the worst, and they were so.
I mean, relative to everyone else, it was
and very not confident and voice cracking in that last panel. When they were sitting there with these representatives from New Zealand and the UK and
innovators, people who are looking to make progress, right?
Yeah, and basically looking at the FDA like, can you stop fucking things up for us? Because like what you're doing is carrying over to us, and we have to work twice as hard. And then, of course, in typical FDA fashion, the very next day they release a statement saying that they denied all these other liquids, and then a few days later, an import ban. Yeah. So they're doubling down on stupid. They learned nothing. They don't ever learn anything. But there was so much science and so much data, and a lot of it was coming from the U.S. And it was very compelling, was all they would say.
Well, you have a worldview where you have many countries who have successfully implemented rules, and the UK, New Zealand, it's all very positive. And then you have the FDA.
Even Abigail Friedman, her presentation was about the states that had flavor bans and how much the smoking rate has increased in all of those states. And it was plus 7 cigarettes per smoker, or something it equated to. And you have somebody from the US showing you science and data that you say we don't have enough of. And they're saying the decisions that you're making and what you're doing is making the situation worse. Stop it.
Right. I think she showed evidence that flavor bans actually, when it comes to people who go back to smoking, for every flavor that's banned, basically you have a smoker that's going to smoke, 7 extra cigarettes. And rates
have gone up as well for smoking, not vaping, smoking.
Look, guys, we're winning the science argument now.
Yeah.
Well,
the thing is, the science is coming around our way. And the more science comes around our way, it's going to be harder for FDA to continue justifying, the more their political agenda is going to be exposed for what it is. Mm-hmm. They can't hide behind the youth narrative anymore. They can't hide behind using stale data anymore when the new current data says these products are safer, these products are more effective, et cetera, et cetera. And when we're getting this number of scientists come behind us, at the end of the day, I can't help but think we're going to win.
The science argument is not being understood in the courts. The courts are playing politics, unfortunately, at the moment.
Well, I had a meeting on Monday with the Senate Majority Leader for the Democrats in South Carolina, and I brought, thank you, Lindsay, her data. And I was like, vaping is down 58% in South Carolina. And he's like, well, where are you getting these numbers from? And I was like, the new NYTS numbers that came out from the CDC. And then I had a printout of all of the all of the inspections in South Carolina, and 50,000 inspections, 5,000 were were electronic cigarette sales, and 46 of those sales were vape shops. And he's like, well, where are you getting this data from? And I was like, downloaded it from the FDA website. I handed that man so much paperwork to take with him at the end, because I was like, this is all directly, I'm like, this is from the FDA's website. This is from the CDC's website. I gave him so much paperwork because I needed him to understand. And he was like trying to challenge me. And I'm like, well, this is coming from the CDC directly and the FDA directly. I'm showing you where the problem is. And it's not in vape.
Do you think that might actually change his mind, or just make him that much more
No, he was actually really open to it. He actually helped pass the preemption bill.
That's
well,
like
you know, what we really need, I talked about earlier, is we need to be put in our own product category under FDA, but outside the TCA, still under the Food, Drug, Cosmetic Act. But it's going to take Congress to do that. And FDA is not going to move off its position until the courts force it to do so or Congress forces it to do so.
Yeah.
You know, we've got a friendly ear, at least in the House right now. You know, Oversight, Commerce, Judiciary are you know, at least going to listen to us. So if we can get some legislation proposed this term, and with divided government, especially if the courts rule in our favor and sort of really put it to FDA and force it back into Congress's lap. You talk about Roger. Roger's not dictating anything now because Roger's not in power anymore, Steve. It's Jamie Comer. Oh, by the way, a good Kentuckian.
There are one or two.
Is bourbon drinking buddies with our state lobbyist, which is good to know. But you know, if the House were to pass something, especially if the courts have ruled against FDA and put them in a position where it has to go back to Congress, with divided government, they're going to have to come to a compromise, or they might not be able to regulate us at all.
Right.
It's very, very symbolically important at the moment.
Yeah.
Can I ask you something? Do you believe that? Okay. Do you think that I understand that the FDA has essentially forced the issue of vaping and the regulations into the courts. Do you believe, regardless of if they rule in favor of industry or the FDA, do you not think it somehow diminishes the message? Because I really want to win. I don't know how to phrase this. I think a legal battle, you know, if we come out on top of that, that is somewhat less. Okay, I believe that's a substantially lesser achievement than one that is based on the merits of the science and the evidence.
Well, that's not going to happen, unfortunately.
Yeah.
No. I agree with you. Certainly not in the courts. I simply think that. I think Lindsay's right. We have all of this new compelling, and of course, Lindsay is, you know, she could go on for hours and hours, and we need someone like you to go on for 3 minutes and translate. I'm not good at that, but my point is I think that we have people that can show those that are willing to perhaps open their minds to the possibility that they're not seeing the whole picture. Mm-hmm. We have ways to make these people see what they have not yet considered, and I think that's something that's so much. I think that very important. Now, I don't know exactly how this is going to play out. The en banc hearing, when is that going to be settled? You mentioned.
No, we think sooner rather than later.
Now, once that, let's say Triton prevails,
right,
and they are granted this. If they prevail in this one, that means all 16 justices will hear the case. Is that correct?
They've all heard the case, and a majority has to decide one way or the other.
Okay, let's say Triton prevails. What next?
Well, that's going to depend, Philip, on what the court says and what remedy they fashion. If the court says this applies only to Triton, the FDA is probably not going to do anything. They're not going to go to the Supreme Court over that, which is why I think that we as an industry need to be able to go to court in Texas and to seek a national injunction that would almost force FDA's hand to go to the Supreme Court.
So you don't think the Fifth Circuit decision, regardless of how it's worded, could actually be a blanket decision in favor of Triton and set a precedent for other companies that might?
It depends on how far they want to go. If the Fifth Circuit wants to go totally to the wall and say, FDA, we're shutting this down, if they do it that far, then that's great. It would force FDA's hand to either go back to Congress, go to the Supreme Court, or probably both. It may force us to take some action, and if we do, that may force FDA's hand. It's inertia is really what prevails among agencies in Congress, okay, and in the courts. It's going to take some catalyst to bring about a change, to force someone in another branch, either the judicial branch or the legislative branch or the executive branch, to do something. FDA ain't going to move until they're forced to do so. A ruling in Triton that depends on how far it goes, that could be the catalyst for us to go to Congress and say, look, we need to fix this.
Would you say if there's a court that will do that, it would be the Fifth?
Most likely.
Okay.
Most likely. And it really depends on how far they want to go. Now, also, too, to consider, we've got rulings in the Second Circuit, the Third Circuit, the D.C. Circuit, and the Ninth Circuit we're waiting to hear from. That's 4 cases. And if we win Triton, we've already won Biddy. That's going to be 5 cases we won, 4 cases we've lost if we win all of those. That's a split in the circuits, which means the Supreme Court decides splits among circuits. That begs them to get involved. And if the Supreme Court takes the case, then all bets are off.
And will you be arguing before the Supreme Court, Counsel?
I would not be arguing before the U.S. Supreme Court. Oh, yeah, by the way.
As you hit your jewel.
No. That's not where I'm going.
I'm sorry. You look
I'm
like
just
you're.
kidding.
Are you well?
The lead lawyer that's representing R.J. Reynolds in their menthol case is Noel Francisco, who was the U.S. Solicitor General under Trump.
Oh.
Yep.
Who are these people that are? Someone is using your name with malice. Is there a law firm, Troutman, that has nothing to do with your family?
There's Troutman Sanders, the Troutman Sanders firm.
Is that anything to do with your family?
Only if they've got money.
So that would be a no, right?
No, they're not. They're not related to me. Actually,
okay. Fuck those guys. Thank you.
No, actually, they're a very, very good firm, and they do a lot of stuff in the tobacco and vape space.
Any firm that is right now trying very hard to make sure that the FDA takes enforcement action on their any products that compete with their products right now, I find that to be,
No, that's
I cannot respect that at all.
I get that. I don't either. I got a problem with that. And
more importantly, they're doing it at the retail level. Mom and pop shop. They're trying to scare them into taking product off the shelves. You people are truly without any principles. Thank you very much. Salvage your pride. Fuck it off. Okay, go ahead.
The fact is, they're going to do that to somebody, and somebody's going to have a connection with me or Eric Heyer or the Keller Heckman folks, and we're going to have some fun.
Yeah.
Or King
we have a pepper Troutman here in
Troutman Pepper. They used to be Troutman Sanders. It's Troutman Pepper now.
That's a great thing about Kirschberg. You really don't have to explain a whole lot. There's like one other guy, but I think he's in jail.
He's in jail.
I'm not related to them. It's funny is they reached out to me about something one time involving this space, and I'm like, I forgot what it was, and we were sort of joking about, no, I'm not related.
There's a Sanders. All right, here's your question. You ready?
Yeah.
And you can't say no to the second part of this question. Okay. The first song you remember learning all the words to as a teenager, and can you sing a few bars of it?
It wasn't not even as a teenager, and it's gonna date me quite a bit. But I'm a Beatles fanatic, and it's "I Want to Hold Your Hand."
Go. Let's hear those.
I thought you were a Stones guy.
No, I like the Stones, but I'm a Beatles guy, Doors guy. Who? Oh yeah, I'll tell you something. I think you'll understand. When I say that something.
Everybody.
I want to
Hold your
hand. I want to hold your hand.
Excellent, excellent, excellent.
Who was that? What?
What?
Sorry, I lost.
That was. If you were arrested with no explanation, what would your friends and family assume you had done?
Oh, good Lord.
Good Lord.
You don't have to answer.
Probably threaten somebody.
Threaten somebody. Yeah. That's it for me. Or unless you want to answer the last one. It was just a fun question, actually. What was your favorite toy growing up?
My favorite toy growing up, I had a lot of them. And actually, believe it or not, my favorite toy growing up, remember the Mattel football game?
Hell yeah.
Again, I'm dating myself.
Yeah. We all had. I think everyone on this panel except Allison had that game.
That in a big wheel.
Is that basically the one that you had? It was
just the lines,
like foosball, but with like little hockey players.
It was just the little blips that you had to go up and down and move sideways, and it would.
My parents threw me into like a chess club when I was in the second grade. I think that's abuse, isn't it?
You didn't have a big green machine? Everybody had it. I think all the guys had a big green machine here.
The green machine, like the big wheel green machine?
The green machine. Yeah.
I thought you were talking about the electronic football table where the little football guys would just vibrate.
Oh, yeah,
that's
around.
That's awesome.
That and air hockey. Those were great. That and air hockey.
Air hockey.
If I got like an X-wing fighter or a Millennium Falcon, I would have to accept an encyclopedic dictionary as well. It's like if you can't have one, without something.
Now I'm curious. What is your favorite toy, Phillip? What's your favorite
right now?
No, not now. Our toys now don't count because we're buying them.
Well, it's actually I was a sport. Okay, you're talking games. Once,
not something you got to blow up either.
Yeah, something you got for Christmas that ended up being your favorite toy or your birthday.
That's funny. I like. I was an archer too. The whole idea of. Games. We had Pong, and once the original Legend of Zelda, once I won that, I figured, well, that's it. I'm done with gaming. But one of the things I loved doing as a kid, as far as, I thought it was a game. It's coming back in the form of pickleball. It's Kadima.
Okay.
I actually have a pickleball. I have a match tomorrow night. My first match.
Nice. Yeah. In your area, I did an article about your area on my other show. And nude pickleball is big in that area you live.
What is this fascination with
Alabama?
Pickleball?
Yeah, in the South, nude pickleball. I'm
fun.
like, why would you want to play nude pickleball?
Nude pickleball?
Nude pickleball.
I'll have. I'll be wearing my ring.
No.
I'll have a loincloth. We're all good. No, nude pickleball, I'm not familiar with.
Just swing it, hit the ball with it.
You got 2 rackets.
Well, let's just say that I was a high school baseball player, and there are certain things that you just want to like make sure that you have covered, so to speak.
Yeah, I'm gonna date myself. One of my favorite all-time toys, lawn darts. No, I'm kidding.
Oh man, those were good too.
Yeah, remember the lawn darts?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
My dad lied to me and told me I was having fun playing chess.
We can get back to serious.
I did like board games.
Yeah. So yeah.
Shoots and Ladders was fun, man.
Mine probably, if I had to think, my favorite game was the car track. It was just something about car tracks and just every time that car would just fly off the corner, hit the wall, break.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Racetracks, I had one of those too. Those were cool.
Yeah, I always can still hear my dad saying, "You gotta let go of the throttle on the turn. Gotta let go of the throttle on the turn." What was their Allie? We'll get back to serious. What was did the FDA personnel that were there? Did they feel like they got what they intended to get out there during the summit?
No, I mean,
No.
I think that they got told at every turn that what they're doing is wrong, and like I said, by the panel speak, like they all, everybody that spoke in that section of the day would then all sit at a panel and have questions, and they were not confident. Like I said, it was Benjamin. He was stuttering when he was answering, and I could see Kathleen Crosby was writing things down on a piece of paper because I think she could tell he was struggling, and there was a moment, and I even had said it to some people afterwards, and they were in agreement with me. I was like, is he going to say some shit that he shouldn't say? Like, because he just looked like he wanted to say something, but like he just couldn't.
Did you feel like they were, because somebody else brought it up, I can't remember who it was, they seemed like they were a bit upset with him just leaving and not being there to kind of help along.
Benjamin,
Yeah.
can you tell me a little bit more about who that is? Because Greg mentioned something about him.
So Benjamin, hang on, let me see, because I don't want to get it wrong. Let's see.
I also heard that the share price of Depends went up that day dramatically.
Yeah, 100%. So Benjamin Alpert, he's the deputy director of the CTP.
So would you say that he is essentially Brian King's first,
number two?
What? Okay.
I mean, I would assume so. Anybody that he's going to bring along with him to something like this, and then leave and let them kind of run, interference.
Like Matthew Holman's replacement, maybe.
And that was funny too, because Matthew Holman was there and he actually asked a few questions.
Did he ask good questions that he would not have been able to ask?
I mean, he did. He kept it kind of, like they do with each other. Yeah, but but it was great. I mean, a lot of people asked a lot of great questions, but I think just even like the Cochrane review, they were like debunking how they've been debunked by the FDA, and then they had posted the slide at the end, and it was like when the science is different, it just means that it changed and not that you're wrong or whatever they posted at the end of it. And it was kind of like a look, they went over like their funding and how they
because you mean Jamie Hartman Boyce, was this Jamie or
I think so. Let me double check.
Did he even give a reason for his leaving? I mean, did he just exit stage left?
He was sitting behind me, and I actually turned around.
Did he say hello to you?
No.
Wait, are we still talking about Benjamin?
Brian.
Right.
He was sitting behind me, but he
look at Allie got a better seat than Brian King. Damn, girl. Damn.
I don't think he
Is that surprises you?
Yeah,
have you seen Brian?
He was there, yeah. Yes, Jamie Hartman Boyce, yes.
Okay, so Jamie Hartman Boyce had to go through all of this mostly because they have been getting so much bullshit about their funding sources, and none of it.
She went through the funding. She went through how they do their testing.
See, I love that, but I hate the fact that she had to do it at all because it's based on absolute nonsense conjecture that's just thrown out in the world. It's the ultimate.
Right, but it was kind of great to sit there and see it happen. You know what I mean? Because it's like you're calling us out. Well, we're going to call you out right here while you're in the room. So that was pretty great.
She does it well.
And Allie, props to you and APM. I mean, some of the posts you've been doing on Twitter recently where you're just unpacking stuff. And it's just, you're just going book, chapter, verse, and paragraph on these people. And, at some point in time, they're going to stop opening their mouths because every time they do, you slam something down it.
Right. You got to have the receipts. You can't start talking like that and not having yourself.
That's why I call her the amazing and wonderful Allie.
Let's just say I don't know if you guys take turns doing those amazing threads, but your thesaurus is more powerful than mine.
And
I mean, honestly, I can't take credit for the threads. I mean, that's all Counterpoint Strategies, Jim McCarthy and Cameron English. But I mean, Greg and I get them in an email, and we can edit them and add to them and improve them and stuff like that. But
we don't.
We send them the day. I send them stuff all day long. I'm like, we need to, attack
last question about the E-Cig Summit. Brian King's number 2, Benjamin. Is that his first name or last?
Benjamin Alpert or something.
Do you believe that this person was stuttering and nervous and ill at ease because he felt outnumbered, or because he might actually feel that they are not right?
I kind of got the same kind of feeling from him that I got from watching the prior year with Matthew Holman. And I don't know, I could be wrong. Maybe he was just overwhelmed because it was just such an epic beatdown of science and data, and he didn't really know what to say. But there were a few moments where he just kept saying like how compelling the data was that he got, like when they were asked questions, well, it's very compelling and definitely should be taken into consideration. And now that we have this information, we can definitely take it and, but he was very unsure of what he was stuttering a lot. And he had spoken earlier in the day and didn't or answer a question earlier and didn't sound like that. Like he just seemed like he got beat down during the day.
And I imagine he's a proper epidemiologist as opposed to his boss. And I think that anyone who has studied, who has a doctorate in these fields, they are going to understand that they are being shown new information that contradicts their what they've been told that they need to stick by. And someone who
it was overwhelming. The data was overwhelming. I was sitting here and I'm like, I'm so hopeful that this is going to make a difference. And at the same time, I'm so aware that it's not. And that's really disappointing.
Yeah, that sucks that you have to feel that way.
People of ethical backgrounds are going to have to come to terms with that. And I think that Brian King is a company man. And I hope that this Benjamin individual is someone who's having maybe.
But it doesn't matter, because if he goes to a tobacco company where he can do better work like Matthew Holman, then it's just a revolving door of the next person that's not going to speak up.
Well, it does say a lot about what's still not right at the FDA, especially.
Do you guys think if things don't go well for them, that King is just a scapegoat, just someone that's going to be
King is a scapegoat. Someone's going to be the fall guy here. It's either going to be, or I think eventually it's going to be Caliph, because FDA's got a multitude of problems, and we're just one of them. They've gotten pilloried from all sides on the food stuff, on the tobacco stuff, on the drug stuff with the baby formula and the abortion pill. Caliph is going to be the sacrificial lamb.
Well, I just wonder, because he started off bad. I mean, he started off.
He inherited a shit.
He inherited, but he started off bad with the CDC, correct? He was with the CDC and made that stupid bogus call with Ivali. And it just seems like, why would you put a guy that already has made that mistake into this position in the FDA? And that's why I kind of consider him as the fall guy. He's already made a mistake. They can say, well, he made a mistake at the CDC, and when he said that Ivali was all e-liquid and it had nothing to do with what do you call it, THC,
right?
Right. Yeah. And then all of a sudden they know he made that mistake. And now all of a sudden, let's give him this position. To me, that almost seems like, okay, let's let him fuck up.
You're talking about King's move from the CDC.
Yeah.
Okay.
King.
Right. Well, that's I can't really see that being.
Yeah. I mean, he already made a huge mistake.
But let's just give him this job. He was going to just toe the line. He's going to just do as he's told, and that's it.
Yeah, exactly. But Caliph, he was a practicing cardiologist, correct? He's not a research.
I wouldn't go to Caliph for a dose of hemorrhoids.
Yeah, well, sometimes you can't pick it.
Did he have anything to do with the ED?
He is not a researcher by trade. He was a practicing physician, right? Practicing physicians should never head up his age. It's ridiculous. It's
Well, that just goes to show you how they pick.
Caliph was the FDA commissioner under Obama at the time of the deeming rule. Mm-hmm. He flubbed all the stuff with the opioid crisis back 7-8 years ago, and he barely was confirmed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I know. I was really disappointed.
Yeah, we knew exactly what we were getting.
And he spells his name J-A-K, right? J-A-K-A-F-I. Is that who you're talking about?
Caliph? No, it's C-A-L-I-F.
Who? All right, I'm looking up somebody else
with a goofy bow tie. But it was our friend Mitt Romney was one of the ones who voted to confirm him.
Yeah.
Mitt's confused.
Well, Greg, I have to ask you your thoughts on Australia, because Mr. Paul's sitting over there to the far left.
I feel for you people. I really do. And I think your country is going the absolute wrong way. And I think they're going to pay a heavy price for it. And, That's just
so far.
So far as people who are paying, smokers are paying a heavy price for it.
Elections have consequences, and sometimes those are bad consequences.
Well, we've only had this new government in power now for just on 12 months. And we knew in part what we were getting. But this new health minister that we've got, he was there 10 or so years ago behind the scenes, not as a health minister, but in government. And he was on one of the boards pushing forward for the plain packaging laws. And now we've seen over the last 5 years how much we've bitten into the budget and how much money we've taken away from the tobacco taxes. Now, with adding another 5% per year for the next 3 years, pushing it all the way to around $20 billion a year. Okay. And by the way, there's only 26 million here in Australia. A $20 billion per year tobacco tax windfall for the government is one thing.
Man.
But when you convert that into the medical system, you're looking at $137 billion a year that is being spent on associate, problems from smoking. It's a lose-lose situation for them. And as James there says, yeah, it's black market butler. And
I don't know how they
can
be spending these all the resources that they're going to have to put in toward border patrol and embargoes. It's crazy.
Well, that's the even funnier part, Philip, because the head of the border security came out the other day at the Senate Select hearing, and he said, but you put nothing in the budget whatsoever for enforcement when it's coming through our borders. There is no budget there for that department to actually enact.
You mean basically we're talking the same thing as Greg Hunt had over again, only with new and improved zeal?
This is 2.0, but on steroids this time.
But without any more resources to keep it from going really, really wrong?
They want to stop it, but they don't want to invest.
I'm losing.
Well, here's the issue.
Come on over.
And this became very apparent the other day. At the E-Cig Awards over in the UK, Australia actually picked up 2 very acclaimed prizes, one being the best menthol liquid, and the second, they picked up another prize coming second with one of the best desserts, which shows that Australia has the capability of playing on the world stage as liquid manufacturing and development.
If it weren't for the Australian government, Australia would be the greatest place in the world.
I just wonder, I mean, do you feel there is going to be a certain number that a pack of cigarettes are going to reach where it is going to really start to piss people off there? Because, I mean, you already have high numbers and people are having to decide whether to buy food or buy a pack of fucking cigarettes.
It's at the breaking point now where
I would hope
a regular packet of 20s is around the $40 Australian mark.
What is that, 25 American?
No, it's about 32 US.
But okay. That's usurious. I've never even heard of anything like that.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, eventually.
I mean, how much are they in Japan? I mean, what's
Japan
25 cents?
Japan has an ultra low smoking rate now. It's more heat not burn than anything else in Japan. Okay, they approve and they go forward with heat not burn. Okay, because they don't want the same problems. Australia now, the black market when it comes to rolling tobacco, or what we call chop,
30.
That's $40 for 50 grams, and the government alternative, a 50-gram pouch of tobacco here is around 137 Australian dollars, which is about 110 US dollars for 50 grams.
So
I'm
how much
reading
can you get like a pack of cigarettes from your guy down the street for?
$20.
That's a
the
saving.
going rate in the black.
Yeah.
Okay, my best case scenario when I was still smoking, I would be going through $60 a day.
Yep.
New Zealand is
Yeah.
35. Well, it says here, maybe it's wrong, but it's Google. But it says the
I'd
average.
probably skip brunch, I guess.
Yeah, the average salary in Australia is 90,800, which is about 60,000. Is that about right?
65,000 US.
The New Zealand dollar is
It's New Zealand dollars comparable to the Australian dollar, a couple of cents. So you're looking at 28, 29 US dollars even at that point. But their smoking rates are going down. And it was quite interesting. While the summit was going on, what's his name? Dr. Farsalinas actually released that instead of the world smoking rate going down at 1.2 billion smokers, it's now 1.3. It's going up because of the flavor bans around the world. That's not a good look.
No.
India, I would say, probably has quite a bit to do with that. I mean,
Okay. You look at the countries.
I mean, the fact that India.
Well, India's up there, okay, but then you've got Russia, you've got
I'm still
Poland.
here, guys. I just had to stretch my legs for a second.
Yep, that's
Yeah,
fine.
we're just about done. So
you have Russia, you have Poland, you have Indonesia, you have Malaysia, you have Thailand, all with massive smoking rates.
But I don't believe any of them. I think India is the only one that has a full ban in place, and that's.
I remember that day so well. One day I was developing liquids for the region. Next day, everyone had chains on their shops in India. It was instantaneous. It was overnight. I've never seen anything like it. Ever.
You know who you need? You know
We're
who you
talking a
need?
billion. What's the population? Billion.
You know who you need?
Oh, go away.
I love you, Paul.
He's not my king. All right. So no,
he's not my king either. We just, I need to.
Yeah, don't plug him. Don't plug him on this show.
No, I just don't care.
We could care less.
I mean, I've never
we've
given
got
less of a shit.
Yeah,
we've got serious problems here now because you've got one side, and especially with COP10 coming up, and the actual playbook and what is actually leaking out now. And Australia now is becoming the poster child for all things stupid. Okay,
but just so people can understand what we're talking about here, India is going to be the most populous country in the world maybe next year. It's already at 1.4 billion. Russia, all of Russia is 145 million. 1.4 billion. This denied all but smoking and dying in a split. I mean, this is just the kind of thing that dystopian novels couldn't possibly have predicted. And they gave awards shortly thereafter.
And who we have to really, I really need to pull the rug out from under him now, and that's Sandro, right? Domeno, right? The TV doctor that we've got here running around, and but get this, in the budget, he was just given 91 or 95 million to start an Australian version of the CDC. Oh, go fuck yourself.
By who?
By the government.
What? But I mean, I guess my question is, what is the best course of action for someone like you who's passionate but maybe doesn't know where to
move to Florida,
how to channel that passion?
Move to Florida.
It's move to Florida is one, but
the climate. He's got to go to where the climate is kind of the same.
I'm saying maybe make a stop in Puerto Rico, seeing how that
Australia.
works out for you.
You can go to like Australia, to Texas, maybe.
I guarantee
Houston,
trying to engage with Sandro on Twitter is not. There's no future in that.
But you can't even engage
Nevada
with the politicians here because they're so ingrained in their stupidity and the lies that they've been fed.
It's
well, hey, Snoop Dogg says it's
here's
that
a
time.
comparison. Here's an absolute beautiful comparison. You have the RACGP, Royal Australian College of General Practitioners, and then you have the Royal College in the UK, and the Australian version is saying that the UK version is lying outright.
Yeah.
Can I ask you something? I was told Colin Mendelsohn was going to be basically edited into a TV spot that was going to make him look somehow like he was losing an argument. Is that something that is happening in Australia in the next few days? Because that really upsets me, because Colin Mendelsohn is the only one who has been speaking truth to absolute abhorrent stupidity.
Look, turn the clock back to 2019 when I was...
Please don't make me.
When I was being interviewed by all the major networks here in Australia, and when the truth came out then, they didn't like what they heard. Okay? And now the same thing is happening again. And they're trying to throw Colin under the bus, and I don't really appreciate it.
Well, if there's anything that I would be interested in doing is pointing out how they may or may not be defaming that man, because truly that is where I toe the line, because he is the only, I mean, he and Alex Waddick have been just doing this in all day, every day, and they are outnumbered 100 to 1. And it's, I really can't tell you how much I respect and am grateful for what they do. But that said, Sandro is a bloody idiot. And you know what? This whole Dr. Jesus look he's got going on. You're not fooling anyone, buddy. It's a wig.
No.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
Well, he's ex-WHO. What do you expect?
Snoop Dogg says it's time to go, guys.
420 time.
Counselor, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks
for having me on. Anytime, you all. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It's good to talk with you.
It was good to have you on the show. Learned a little bit about your personal stuff, and we became best friends. You do not like pineapple on pizza, so we are officially best friends now. Thank you, Allie, Paul, Phillip, and Timmy up there. And we'll see everybody next Wednesday at 4 p.m. Pacific. What time is that on the East Coast, Tim?
That'd be 7 p.m. Eastern time, John.
Central.
Forget it. I'm off the clock.
Are you talking to me?
You're talking to me. All right, guys. Hey, and thank you everybody in chat for joining us. Like I said, we'll see everybody next week. And thank you again, Greg, for joining us.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Counselor.
See ya.